The words hit me like physical blows, each syllable landing with precision. "You're not our problem anymore." My father's voice was steady, businesslike, the same tone he used when firing employees from his medical practice. My mother stood beside him in the doorway of our family home, her diamond earrings catching the porch light as she examined her manicured nails. Behind them, my sister Victoria's face appeared, her eyes alight with triumph as she watched our parents discard me like yesterday's garbage. The small suitcase they'd allowed me to pack sat pathetically at my feet in the gathering darkness. "But I'm your daughter," I whispered, my voice breaking as the rain began to fall, soaking through my thin jacket. "I'm your firstborn." My father checked his Rolex, impatience tightening his features. "You're 21, Olivia, an adult. You're clearly not Carter material." He glanced at Victoria, who was 19 and hadn't worked a day in her life. "Unlike your sister." The door closed with quiet finality, the porch light extinguishing seconds later. I stood there, rain plastering my hair to my face, staring at the darkened windows of the only home I'd ever known. Through the living room curtains, I could see them, already resuming their lives, already forgetting I existed. My name is Olivia. I'm 27 and a medical entrepreneur. This is the story of how I rebuilt my life from the ashes they left me in. That night, 6 years ago, I had exactly $43.27 in my wallet and nowhere to go. I'd worked part-time at our family's medical clinic throughout college, handling paperwork and scheduling, always for experience, never for actual pay. My father had controlled everything. My bank account, my tuition payments, my housing, and now, because I'd questioned his dubious billing practices, I had nothing. For 3 nights, I slept in the 24-hour laundromat 6 blocks from my parents' home, washing the same clothes repeatedly to justify my presence. During the day, I applied for jobs, using the public library's computers. I was a Carter. I had the education, the pedigree, the knowledge, but without references or experience on paper, doors kept closing. On the 4th day, exhaustion and hunger drove me to Fiona's diner, where I counted out coins for the cheapest item on the menu. Fiona Wallace, the owner, brought me soup instead of the plain toast I'd ordered. Her eyes, sharp, assessing, took in my unwashed hair and wrinkled clothes. "You're Gregory Carter's girl, aren't you?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from me. I stiffened, preparing for judgment. The Carters were respected in our community. Who would believe I'd been thrown away? Instead, Fiona leaned forward. "That man ruined my sister's physical therapy practice with his insurance scams, drove her right out of business." She pushed the soup closer to me. "Eat, then we'll talk about the job opening I have." That soup was the first warm meal I'd had in days. The waitressing job that followed was my first step toward independence. I worked double shifts, saved every penny, and slept on a cot in Fiona's storage room. Within months, I'd saved enough to rent a tiny studio apartment. Within a year, I'd earned a scholarship to finish my business degree. I never took a cent from my family again. I never tried to contact them. But I watched from a distance as Victoria graduated from medical school with honors, joined our father's practice, and became engaged to Dr. James Patterson, the hospital's rising star surgeon. I watched as my parents expanded their clinic into 3 locations, their reputation growing alongside their wealth. What they didn't know was that I was building something too. Using knowledge gained from years of working in their clinic, I developed a medical nutrition supplement line that addressed gaps in patient care. I secured investors, patents, and finally a distribution deal with National Medical Suppliers, the same company that provided equipment to my father's clinics. By 27, I was CEO of Carter Medical Nutrition, deliberately using the family name they thought I'd dishonor. My company was valued at $12 million, and I was about to become their biggest competitor, and they had no idea. Until today. The invitation to Victoria's engagement party arrived by mistake, addressed to current resident at my old apartment, forwarded twice before reaching me. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, the elegant loops and precise angles unchanged after 6 years. The Belle Harbor Hotel, Saturday at 7 p.m., black tie optional. I stood in my penthouse office, the invitation trembling slightly in my hand, as my assistant Nora knocked and entered with the day's reports. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my expression. I smoothed the heavy cardstock between my fingers. "Yes," I said, a plan already forming. "Actually, I need you to clear my Saturday evening and call Diane at PR. We're going to move up the announcement of our hospital partnership." When Nora left, I opened my laptop and pulled up the file I'd been building for years. Every questionable billing code from my father's practice, every falsified insurance claim, every instance where patients were charged for procedures that never happened. And most damning of all, the tax records showing they'd been using my social security number to hide assets long after throwing me out. 6 years of methodical documentation. 6 years of waiting for the perfect moment. During my time working at the clinic, I'd made copies of documents showing irregular practices, insurance forms that didn't match patient records, duplicate billings. After being thrown out, I maintained contact with Maria, the clinic's longtime bookkeeper who had always been kind to me and was growing increasingly uncomfortable with what she was seeing. Through our discreet monthly coffee meetings, I gathered evidence while building my business connections. Saturday night, I arrived at the Bell Harbor Hotel at exactly 7:32 p.m. Late enough for everyone to be present, early enough for maximum impact. The doorman recognized my name from the approved vendor list. I'd arranged for a champagne delivery that would never arrive, having called the hotel earlier that week, posing as my mother's assistant to add my company to their approved vendors. I chose a simple black dress, elegant but forgettable, nothing that would draw attention until I wanted it. My heels clicked against marble floors as I approached the ballroom, each step precise, measured. Through the open doors, I could see them, my family, unchanged, yet unrecognizable. My father, silver-haired and commanding, holding court with hospital administrators. My mother, draped in diamonds, orchestrating the perfect event. Victoria, radiant in white, clinging to James's arm as they accepted congratulations. The perfect family portrait. The perfect lie. I stepped through the doorway, and the first person to notice me wasn't my family. It was James. His champagne glass froze halfway to his lips, his face draining of color as our eyes locked across the room. Recognition, then panic, flashed across his features. Interesting. Victoria followed his gaze, her celebration faltering as confusion, then shock registered on her face. She whispered something urgent to our mother, who turned slowly, her practiced smile slipping just enough to reveal the rage beneath. "Olivia," my mother said, her voice carrying just enough to draw attention from nearby guests. "You weren't invited." The surrounding conversations quieted as guests sensed the tension, their curiosity piqued by the unexpected drama. I smiled, not warmly but with precision, a scalpel of a smile. "Hello, Mother, Father." I nodded to each of them, ignoring Victoria completely. "Congratulations on the engagement." My father stepped forward, positioning himself between me and the other guests, his voice lowered to a dangerous whisper. "What are you doing here? You need to leave. Now." I tilted my head slightly. "Is that any way to greet your firstborn daughter? The one whose social security number you've been using for tax fraud for the past 6 years? His face hardened, but I caught it, the flicker of fear behind his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I opened my clutch, removing a USB drive, "because the IRS is very interested in discussing it, as is the insurance commissioner." I turned to James, whose complexion had now taken on a greenish tinge. "And I imagine the hospital board will have questions about their star surgeon's involvement in falsified research trials." Victoria stepped forward, her white dress rustling. "You're making things up," she hissed, though her voice lacked conviction, "just like you always did. You're jealous because I'm the successful one, the one they're proud of." I laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to unsettle them more than anger would have. "Successful? Is that what you call fraud? Enough." My father's voice was sharp, commanding, the voice that had once made me cower. "This is your sister's engagement party. Whatever grievances you think you have—" "Think I have?" I interrupted, my voice calm but carrying. "Doctor." "Winters," I called out to the hospital's chief of medicine who stood nearby. "Did you know that the Carter Clinic has been billing for procedures never performed, or that Victoria here never completed her medical residency?" Dr. Winters stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "What are you saying?" "She's saying nothing," my mother interjected smoothly. "Our daughter has issues, delusions. We've tried to help her, but—" "Delusions?" I echoed, pulling out my phone. "Let's see what the state medical board calls them." I pulled up an email and handed my phone to Dr. Winters. "This was sent an hour ago. An official investigation has been opened." As Dr. Winters read, his expression darkened. He looked up at my father, then Victoria, betrayal evident in his gaze. "Gregory," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "is this true?" My father's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his drink. "Of course not. She's lying. She's always been troubled." Victoria moved to James's side, clutching his arm. "Tell them, James. Tell them she's making this up." But James remained silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. Victoria's grip on his arm tightened, her voice rising with panic. "James!" "I didn't know," he finally said, his voice barely audible. "Not at first. I swear I didn't know." The ballroom had gone completely silent, the other guests now openly watching the drama unfold. My mother's composed facade cracked, desperation creeping into her expression. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, turning to the onlookers with a forced laugh. "Please, everyone, enjoy the party. This is just a family matter we need to—" "It's not just a family matter," came a new voice. A man in a dark suit stepped forward from the entrance. "Gregory and Margaret Carter? I'm Agent Harlow with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. We'd like to ask you some questions." Behind him stood two more agents and a representative from the state medical board I'd been working with for months. Over the past year, I had carefully built relationships with the regulatory agencies, providing anonymous tips at first, then gradually revealing my identity as the evidence became overwhelming. The IRS agent had been particularly interested in the tax fraud involving my Social Security number. My father's face went ashen. My mother's hand flew to her throat, her fingers grasping at pearls as if they might somehow save her. Victoria turned to me, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, her voice a desperate whisper. "Olivia, please, you can't do this. We're family." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but a profound emptiness where hurt had once lived. "We were never family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't throw people away." As the agents led my parents toward a side room for questioning, Victoria sank into a chair, her engagement party crumbling around her. James stood apart, already distancing himself from the impending scandal. I had discovered his involvement in falsified research through Maria, who had access to billing records showing patients being charged for participation in clinical trials that existed only on paper, trials that listed James as the principal investigator. I turned to leave, my purpose fulfilled, when Victoria's voice called after me, broken and small. "What happens now?" I paused at the doorway, not turning back. "Now you learn to build something real," I said, just like I had to. Outside, the night air felt clean against my skin. My assistant Nora waited by the car, her expression questioning. "Is it done?" I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. "It's done." "The press release about our hospital partnership goes out at midnight," she reminded me. "Are you sure about the timing?" "Absolutely," I said, sliding into the car. "By morning, everyone will know that Carter Medical Nutrition is launching in every major hospital in the state, except my father's clinics, which will be too busy with fraud investigations to care." Nora glanced at her tablet. "The reservation's still good at Eloise's if you want to celebrate." I considered this, then shook my head. "Number, take me home. I think I'd just like some quiet tonight." Later, standing on my penthouse balcony overlooking the city, I thought about the frightened girl in the rain 6 years ago, the one who believed family meant something, the one who had to learn the hard way that sometimes you have to build your own foundation when others tear yours down. My phone buzzed with a text from Fiona. "Heard the news. Proud of you, kid." We had remained close over the years, with Fiona becoming both mentor and surrogate mother figure. Her guidance had been invaluable as I built my company, and she was the first investor to believe in my vision. I smiled, thinking of her sister whose business my father had destroyed, of the dozens of other victims who would now see justice. Revenge wasn't my primary goal. Success was, but justice made the success so much sweeter. Sometimes family isn't who you're born to. It's who stands beside you when you're rebuilding from nothing. My company would continue to grow. My parents would likely face charges. Victoria would have to discover who she was without the family mythology propping her up. And me? I was exactly who I'd made myself to be. Not despite them, but because of what they'd done. In throwing me away, they'd given me the one thing they never intended: freedom to become something more than just another Carter. I raised my glass to the glittering city below. To building something real, I whispered to no one and everyone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's creation.